First up, the 7th seed in the College Football Playoff in the Orange Bowl, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Right now, as we record here the day before the game, Wednesday, January 8th, 1.5-point favorites against the Penn State Nittany Lions, the 6th seed in the CFP. Total between 44.5 and 45, pretty much consensus. The spread down from Notre Dame -2.5, though, so we have seen some money come in on Penn State over the last 24 hours or so. Couple injuries to note before I get to your handicap, Brett. Jeremiah Love only had 6 or so carries against Georgia in the quarterfinals, so his status and or just overall touch load definitely worth noting here before kickoff. And then the bigger name, the key to Penn State's elite defense, Abdul Carter, dealing with an injury that caused him to not practice much, seemingly, over the last couple of days. I don't think many reporters have had a chance to really literally see him in practice. So with those two injuries in mind, Carter being the much more impactful one, what's your overall handicap for this game?
Yeah, I think that line did move a touch in favor of Penn State because of Abdul Carter today. James Franklin did say that he expects him to play Wednesday, but it will be a game-time decision. He only played 19 snaps against Boise State, and Jeremiah Love re-injured an existing injury. He actually got hurt in both playoff games, so that's definitely something to watch. He's kind of the lifeblood of that Notre Dame run game. Look, there's two things that can be true and I believe are true at the same time. Number one, Penn State had the easy route to get to the semifinals, but also they're a good team. I'm not sitting here saying that they're fraudulent or anything like that. They earned their spot there, but they, of course, were given pretty much the easiest route imaginable to the semifinals. Now, that said, so is Notre Dame, and I've seen them do it against much better competition. Defensively, they allowed 3 points apiece, if you're not including garbage time, to Indiana and Georgia. I mean, that's incredible. You're going into the playoff and holding teams to basically 3 points while the game is within reason. But do note that 17 of Notre Dame's 23 points came via special teams against Georgia last game. Their only offensive touchdown came on a short field that, of course, was created by the defense. I think these two teams are very similar in style, if not necessarily same in approach. So I'm going to look at it. Who do I trust more, Drew Aller or Riley Leonard? I think I lean Riley Leonard just because of what I've seen him do and what the coaching staff trusts him to do. Do I trust the Notre Dame offensive line or the Penn State offensive line? Saw a great tweet out there. Sorry, forget who it was by, but Mitchell Schwartz had kind of quoted it and shared it, going over how good the Notre Dame offensive line is, even with their absences. So I think I go Notre Dame offensive line there as well. And then probably the easiest choice, in my opinion, here is do you trust Marcus Freeman or James Franklin more in a big game? And that's Marcus Freeman all day for me. So until Franklin proves me wrong in a big game, I'm going to bet against him. Does SMU count as a big game? Does Boise State count as a big game? I don't think
counts
so.
As a couple playoff wins.
Yeah, but I don't think it counts as a big game to them. They expected to win, double-digit favorites in both of those. So this honestly is a pretty simple handicap. I like what Notre Dame does, about 20% more in just about every facet, including coaching. Notre Dame's been a reliable bet all year long. I don't think that that's any different today. I'm going Notre Dame with the points.
So one thing worth noting here, Penn State digging into this one a little bit closer, especially with Penn State's defense, which, as you noted, seemingly should, air quotes, should have Abdul Carter on the field, haven't really faced a quarterback like Riley Leonard. They played some dual-threat quarterbacks, including Ohio State's Will Howard, who we'll get to when we handicap Ohio State and Texas. But Leonard is a true dual-threat quarterback. Yeah. So how do you think that matchup goes, and especially as it relates to maybe Notre Dame's team total or just the full game total?
In terms, I don't like betting these totals. I'm not a good totals bettor in college football, just up front. You're not going to hear me give out many totals because I just don't have a very good grasp on that. So in terms of that, not entirely sure. But Riley Leonard, he's the I hate to use this coaching term, but he's the guy that keeps you honest, right? You can't just load the box and go after if Jeremiah Love is in the game or if any of the other backs are in the game. You can't just go after them blindly because, Riley Leonard will make you play on any given play. And I think that's why you see his sack totals are so low too, because he can get out of that. And that's the one thing that, Penn State really, really likes to hang their hat on as a pass rush, especially with a top, future top 10, maybe top 5 overall pick in Abdul Carter. But when you have a quarterback that's so mobile to be able to neutralize that kind of pass rush, that opens up the game, that makes the defense sit on their heels a little bit more. And it's really going to make that Penn State secondary work hard at their craft. And they're a pretty decent secondary, but I do think they have some flaws this year. Notre Dame's not exactly trotting out the Ohio State receiving core, but they're good enough. And so I think, Riley Leonard is going to be able to create things out of nothing. And he's done it against defenses that I think are a lot more dangerous and a lot more stout than Penn State. That's not to say that Penn State has a bad defense. All 4 of these teams left have championship caliber defenses. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But I do think that Riley Leonard can counter what they do pretty well.
My look at the total here, and definitely good takes there. Last week, we saw this total at the same number pretty much with Georgia and Notre Dame. Now, that doesn't mean it won't go under again. I had the under in that matchup in the Sugar Bowl. Same number, arguably a more explosive offense, more trustworthy quarterback. I think you would say between what Georgia had on the field last week and Drew Aller, even though you could definitely...
Just a touch.
Just a touch. But with Aller in mind, so probably not a play on the total for me, just with no adjustment really in the number and a seemingly more explosive offense that Penn State is bringing to the field. As you mentioned, Georgia really struggled. 2 offenses that couldn't move the ball against Notre Dame's defense. You would think Penn State can do something, but can Drew Aller handle these Notre Dame blitz packages? Notre Dame blitzing at around a 35% clip, and their success rate in terms of creating pressure on blitzes at 61%, which is borderline elite, if not purely elite. So how do you gauge Notre Dame's defense, conversely, against Drew Aller here?
Yeah, Georgia's offensive line, to go back a game, they actually really did a good job adjusting. But those first couple of drives, Notre Dame's defense just had them in an absolute blender. And you don't see Kirby Smart coach teams in a blender very often. And Marcus Freeman did it to him a couple of times, including that genius late switcheroo that he had on the 4th down to basically ice the game. But I think I'm going to have a better answer to that in the first couple of drives. You see, the first couple of drives, I should say after the first drive or so, because I want to see how Penn State's offensive line is able to do that. I don't think we've seen all the blitz packages from Notre Dame because they really haven't needed to use it. Going up against Gunnar Stockton last game, who just has no sense of a pass rush whatsoever. Guy was just, he never felt anybody coming. I don't know if that's because he's played behind a very good Georgia offensive line in his career or what, but I think Aller has a little bit more sense of the pass rush. But we saw Ohio State get home on him multiple times. Every time that they played him, they managed to get home. So good defensive lines that do have aggressive pass rushers, good schemes are able to get home on Penn State. But they do have a good offensive line. So we'll see how that goes. I like to see how they adjust. If they can't adjust by drive 3, it's going to be a long day and potential blowout territory in that, for just isolating that kind of matchup.
So would you maybe, and I know you said you don't like to touch totals pregame, but with that in mind, would you maybe look toward a live under if Notre Dame gets the lead, maybe into the second half under?
Well, if you're forcing me to make a play on the total at all, I mean, I could see a case for a pregame under. I think there's a stray 45.5 out there, but if you want to take under 44.5, that's probably fine because I don't think either of these teams is going to be hanging 40 themselves. We just haven't seen either one do it against quality defenses, and you're talking about a Notre Dame defense that may be able to neutralize Penn State fully. Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me to pick a side on the total, that I would probably play under. I'm not necessarily sure if I need to see it live or not. I could pretty confidently say that I wouldn't be betting the over in this, that's for sure.
Right. I'll probably stay away just from the notion that no adjustment, better offense. Penn State could convert in the red zone. Notre Dame's defense has proved me wrong, especially going back to the first round matchup against Indiana. I saw some YouTube commenter said, don't want to watch these videos if a guy's talking about college football playoff bets, and he said he took Indiana. I have no problem talking about my losses. So I had Indiana in the first round. I took the under in regards to Notre Dame's second round matchup against Georgia, hit on that. Probably no live bet for me. Maybe a look at Penn State if they get down by a possession or so. Just because if you go back to the look-ahead line, not that the second game we're going to talk about, there's a major adjustment from the look-ahead line to the pregame number, and even going back to the weekend when this number opened up or reopened. But Notre Dame was a 1.5-point favorite against Penn State on the look-ahead. It's still at that price, even though they reopened around 2.5. So I don't really see a reason to bet this one pregame. I don't see any value per se, but I get your Notre Dame handicap.
Yeah, it's and again, when we're at this point in the season, I'm pretty confident in saying I will continue betting a certain way until I'm proven wrong.
Yeah. I mean, until the market or until James Franklin proves you wrong, then I guess you have
waiting
no
on it. I've been
Right.
waiting a while on that one, Eli.
Absolutely. So if you're looking to make some picks for Notre Dame and Penn State, and you're not looking to bet any money at the best sports books out there, when we highly recommend you checking out the best online sportsbook promos at thelines.com. But we do have a free contest at play.thelines.com where you could win $100 in our college football playoff staking game for the semifinal round, including picks for Notre Dame and Penn State. So be sure to check that out over at play.thelines.com.